If you are a parent looking to buy or rent a home in the GTA, I want to challenge something you may have been told for years. Find the highest ranked school and then find a house inside that catchment. Sounds logical, right? But here's the problem. School rankings aren't the myth. The myth is believing that one ranking tells you everything you need to know about your child's education, and therefore tells you which house you should buy or rent. I have seen families spend weeks searching for a home, reject perfectly good properties, and sometimes pay a significant premium simply because they are trying to get inside one particular school boundary. Today, we are going to talk about why that happens, what school rankings actually tell you, what they don't tell you, and how one Indian family with a grade 5 child got completely stuck trying to make a rental decision because of school rankings. And by the end of this episode, I'm going to give you a simple framework you can use before you sign that lease or make that offer. I'm Vishal Kapoor, and this is Real Estate Wisdom with Vish. Let's get into it. Let's start by getting one thing straight. I'm not here to tell you that school rankings are useless. They are not. Academic performance matters. Parents should research schools. School quality can influence where people want to live. And research has found relationships between school accessibility, school quality, and residential property values. So if you are a parent looking at school information, it's absolutely reasonable. But here's where things go wrong. A ranking becomes a shortcut. A parent sees school A 9.5, school B 7.8, and suddenly the conversation becomes, we need school A. But what does that number actually measure? What does it not measure? More importantly, is school A actually better for your child? That's the question I want you to ask. Because a school ranking is data. It is not destiny. Let me tell you about a situation that I think many immigrant families in the GTA will recognize. I was speaking with an Indian family who was looking to rent a home. They had a child entering grade 5. The parents had done their homework. They had researched school rankings, they had spoken with friends, they had searched online, and they had narrowed their rental search to one particular school catchment. The problem? They couldn't find a home that checked all their boxes. They wanted a good school, a safe neighborhood, a reasonable commute to work, a decent house, enough bedrooms, and a rent that didn't stretch their budget. But every time we found a good property outside their preferred school boundary, they rejected it. The conversation kept coming back to one thing. But the ranking isn't as high. Eventually, I asked them a different question. What exactly are you expecting this higher ranked school to provide your grade 5 child that other school cannot? And they didn't really have an answer. They knew the number, but they hadn't investigated the school itself. They hadn't compared the programs. They hadn't looked deeply into the curriculum. They hadn't spoken to the school. They hadn't considered the commute. They were choosing a number, not necessarily choosing a school. And that's when the whole conversation changed. And I want to pause here because this isn't just a real estate issue. For many immigrant families, education carries enormous emotional weight. especially for families who came to Canada believing that education would give their children opportunities that perhaps their parents didn't have. So, when someone says this is the better school, parents naturally want to do everything possible to get their child there. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I respect it. But good intentions can sometimes turn into tunnel vision. You start with, I want the best education for my child, and eventually you end up with, I will only rent this exact street. Those are two completely different statements. The first is about your child's future. The second is about a geographic boundary. Don't confuse the two. What does a school ranking actually measure? Let's talk about the numbers. The Fraser Institute's Ontario School Report Cards use standardized academic indicators derived from province-wide testing data. That's useful information. But standardized academic outcomes are only one part of a child's school's experience. A ranking doesn't tell you everything about teacher quality, school culture, extracurricular activities, sports, arts, music, student support, special education resources, French programs, advanced programs, leadership, your child's friendships, or whether your child will actually be happy and engaged at that school. Even the Fraser Institute has stated that its report card shouldn't be the sole source parents use when evaluating schools. So, here's the takeaway. Use rankings as a starting point, not as the final decision. A 9.5 isn't necessarily better for your child. Here's a simple example. Imagine your child loves sports. School A has a ranking of 9.4. School B has a ranking of 8.2. But School B has a fantastic athletics program, excellent extracurricular opportunities, and a school environment where your child thrives. Would you automatically choose School A? You shouldn't, because your child isn't going to experience a number. They are going to experience teachers, friends, programs, activities, a school culture, the commute, and the neighborhood. The right school is the school that works for your child, not necessarily the school with the highest number on a website. The Catchment Trap. Now, let's talk about catchments. This is where I see buyers and renters get stuck. They find highly ranked school. Then they draw a circle around it. And suddenly, their entire real estate search has to fit inside that circle. 3 bedrooms? Maybe. Finished basement? Maybe. Good commute? Maybe. Budget? Hopefully. School boundary? Absolutely non-negotiable. That's when the school catchment starts controlling the real estate decision. And remember, you are buying a home, not buying a school. The school is one component of the decision. It shouldn't automatically override every other component. Catchments can change. There's another important issue. School boundaries are not permanent lines carved into the ground. School boards can adjust boundaries. New schools can open. Neighborhoods can grow. Enrollment can change. Programs can change. French immersion boundaries can be different from regular homeschool boundaries. Public and Catholic board operate differently. So, if a listing says walking distance to a top ranked school, don't just take the listing value at face value. Verify the exact address with the appropriate school board. Because the school that appears on a real estate listing isn't necessarily a guarantee of admission to a particular program. That is an important decision. A school can change. And here's something else parents sometimes forget. Schools change. A school isn't a static investment. Leadership changes. Teachers change. Student populations change. Programs change. neighborhoods change, and academic performance can change. Here's a fascinating example. The Fraser Institute's 2025 Ontario Elementary Report Card highlighted Burley Hill Public School. Its score increased from 4.5 in 2018 to 9.9 in 2024. Think about that. If someone had looked at the 2018 number and said, "That's not a good school, I'm never living there," they would have been making a long-term housing decision based on a snapshot in time. And that's the danger of treating rankings as permanent truths. Today's ranking is information about today. It isn't a guarantee about the next 10 years. The $150,000 question. Now, let's bring this back to a real estate. Imagine two almost identical homes. Home A is 1.2 million, home B is 1.05 million. They are relatively close to each other, but home A is inside a more sought after school catchment. A buyer says, "We want home A." Fair enough, but here's the question I would ask. Do you understand why you are paying $150,000 more? Because that $150,000 difference may not be entirely about the school. It could also reflect lot size, street, home condition, renovations, transit, neighborhood amenities, supply, buyer demand, and dozens of other variables. Real estate isn't an experiment where you can isolate one variable perfectly. So don't automatically assume higher school ranking is equal to $150,000 more value. Sometimes it contributes to the premium, but the entire premium cannot automatically be attributed to the school. The rental version of this problem. And this is even more important for renters. Let's go back to our grade 5 family. They were considering two rental properties. One was inside their preferred school catchment, the other was outside it. The second home was better suited to their family's day-to-day life. Better layout, better overall value, more comfortable, and the rental cost was lower. But they were afraid to move outside the catchment. Why? Because they had convinced themselves that choosing the lower ranked school meant compromising their child's future. That's a huge emotional burden to put on a rental decision, especially when you are renting for 1 or 2 years. You are not necessarily making a 15-year decision. You are making a decision for the next chapter of your family's life. And that distinction matters. Buying and renting are different. If you are buying a home for 10 or 15 years, school accessibility may deserve significant weight in your decision. But if you are renting for 12 months while you figure out where you want to live, flexibility can be more valuable. Maybe your child changes programs. Maybe your work location changes. Maybe you discover you love another neighborhood. Maybe you decide to buy somewhere completely different. Renting gives you flexibility. Don't voluntarily give up that flexibility unless there's a compelling reason. What the research tells us. And here's where their real estate economics get interesting. Research has found that access to desirable schools can be reflected in property values. One study examining changes in school catchments found that gaining access to higher ranked schools was associated with approximately 1.3% to 4.1% increase in housing prices in the affected areas. So yes, schools can matter to property values. But notice what I said, can matter. That doesn't mean find the highest ranked school and pay whatever it takes. The market prices in many things simultaneously. Schools are one piece of the puzzle, the 5-question test. So here's my 5-question test for parents. Before rejecting a property because of its school's ranking, ask question 1. What exactly does the ranking measure? Don't just look at the number. Understand the methodology. Question number 2. Is this school actually a good fit for my child? Not my neighbor's child, not my friend's child, my child. Question 3. What does the school board say about the exact address? Verify the catchment. Question 4. How much am I paying for access to this school? Look at the rental premium or purchase premium. Question 5. If the school ranking changed tomorrow, would I still want this home? That is a powerful question. Because if the answer is no, you may be buying the ranking rather than the property. Let's go back to that grade 5 family. Once we change the conversation from which house has the highest ranked school to what does your child actually need, the search became much easier. We looked at the overall neighborhood, the commute, the rental cost, the home's condition, the school's programs, the school board information, and the family's long-term plans. Suddenly, they had options. And that's the biggest lesson. Don't let a ranking turn a large real estate market into a tiny box. The GTA has thousands of families with different priorities, different children, and different definitions of what makes a great school. Your job isn't to find the school with the biggest number. Your job is to find the best overall fit. My rule as a realtor: if you were my client, how I had approached it. I would never tell you ignore school rankings. And I would never tell you you must live in this school catchment. Instead, I had said, let's collect the information. Let's verify the school. Let's understand the catchment. Let's look at the trend. Let's understand your child's needs. Let's compare the neighborhoods. Let's compare the properties. And then let's look at the money. Because my job isn't to push you into the most expensive neighborhood. My job is to help you make an informed decision. Here's today's real estate wisdom. Don't buy a school ranking. Buy a home that works for your family. Don't confuse school quality with school ranking. Don't confuse school catchment with your child's future. And don't confuse a higher number with a better decision. Because the best real estate decision is really about one variable. It's about how all the variables work together. School, home, neighborhood, commute, lifestyle, finances, and your family's future. So if you are a parent searching for a home in the GTA, here's my challenge to you. The next time someone tells you you have to live in this school catchment because it's a 9+ school, don't immediately say yes. Ask why. Why is it better? Better for whom? What does the ranking actually measure? What does that school offer? What does the school board say? What is the catchment? And how much am I paying for it? Because the goal isn't to live in the highest ranked school district. The goal is to create the best environment for your family, financially, academically, and personally. And sometimes that means paying more for the school. Sometimes it means choosing the cheaper house. And sometimes the smartest decision is somewhere right in the middle. I'm Vishal Kapoor, and this is Real Estate Wisdom with Vish. If you know a parent who's currently stuck searching for a home because of school rankings, send them this episode. Because sometimes the biggest obstacle is finding the right home. Isn't the market. It's the assumptions we bring into the search. Until next time, stay informed, stay objective, and make your real estate decisions with wisdom. Bye for now. Disclaimer: the information provided in this podcast is for informational purpose only and should not be considered as financial or investment advice. Consult with your professional before making any real estate decisions.